If I told you Central Florida once had a lake so beautiful people traveled across America just to fish there, you'd probably assume I was talking about someplace near Disney. Nope, I'm talking about Lake Apopka, a lake so legendary that old Florida guides called it the bass capital of the world. And then, Florida basically destroyed it. We're talking poisoned wildlife, water so green it looked radioactive, dead fish, toxic chemicals, and a lake so polluted locals joked, you can catch fish there, but maybe don't eat them unless you're trying to become a comic book villain. And somehow, against all odds, the lake may actually be coming back. This is one of the wildest environmental comeback stories in Florida history. And honestly, it feels like a cautionary tale written specifically for Florida because of course the state built on swamps somehow looked at a swamp and said, yeah, let's remove that. Before Orlando became the land of roller coasters, giant mice, and tourists getting heat stroke in cargo shorts, Central Florida tourism looked very different. Back in the early 1900s through the 1940s, Lake Apopka was famous nationwide. The lake had crystal clear water, underwater grass beds, enormous largemouth bass, and unbelievable fishing. People came from all over the United States to fish here. By the 1940s, more than 20 fishing camps lined the shoreline. You had bait shops, guides, boat rentals, resorts, basically old Florida paradise. Imagine this. You wake up in a lakeside cabin, step outside into the morning fog, and somewhere nearby a guy named Earl is absolutely certain he caught a 14-pound bass right over yonder in 1937. That was Lake Apopka. This place helped build Central Florida tourism long before theme parks existed, but underneath all that beauty was something developers and farmers wanted very badly. Not the lake, the mud. Part 2, the swamp must go. Around the lake sat enormous wetlands and marshes, and those marshes had unbelievably rich black soil. So naturally, humans did the thing humans always do. They drained it. Beginning in the late 1800s and accelerating massively in the 1940s, engineers dug canals and built levees around the north shore of the lake. Roughly 20,000 acres of marshland were drained. Gone. The wetlands that had filtered the lake naturally for thousands of years were converted into farmland. These became known as truck farms because vegetables were shipped north by truck. They grew celery, lettuce, corn, and other produce in the rich muck soil. And, for a while, it worked incredibly well. The farms made money, Florida agriculture expanded, everybody felt victorious, except they had just removed the lake's natural kidneys, because wetlands are basically giant living filtration systems. They trap nutrients, clean water, and stabilize ecosystems. Lake Apopka had relied on those marshes for centuries. Now they were gone, and all the runoff from the farms had only one place left to go, right back into the lake. For decades, fertilizer runoff, pesticides, sewage discharge, and farm wastewater poured into Lake Apopka, and then in 1947, nature kicked the whole thing off a cliff. A hurricane ripped through the area and destroyed massive amounts of underwater vegetation. Those plants had helped stabilize the lake ecosystem. Without them, algae exploded, the water turned green and murky, oxygen levels crashed, fish populations collapsed, the famous bass fishing industry began dying, and by the 1960s and 70s, the transformation was horrifying. The once clear lake became a thick algae-covered soup. Deep black muck covered the bottom. The smell alone was enough to convince you something had gone terribly wrong. Tourism vanished, fishing camps closed, and one of Florida's most famous lakes became a statewide embarrassment. But unbelievably, things were about to get even worse. Because apparently Florida looked at ecological disaster and said, you know what this lake needs? Chemicals. In 1980, toxic chemicals from the Tower Chemical Company contaminated the lake basin. Among the pollutants was DDE, a toxic breakdown product related to DDT, and scientists soon began noticing something deeply disturbing. The alligators around Lake Apopka were showing severe reproductive abnormalities, hormonal problems, developmental issues, extremely low reproduction rates. But the research became internationally important. Scientists studying Lake Apopka helped reveal how environmental pollution can disrupt hormones and reproduction in wildlife. Birds were affected too. The contamination turned the lake into one of the most infamous environmental disasters in the United States. By the late 20th century, many Floridians genuinely believed the lake was beyond saving. This was no longer the bass capital of the world. This was the dead lake. And honestly, If you had seen it back then, you probably would have agreed. So yeah, by the late 90s, Lake Apopka was basically a cautionary tale with a zip code, and most people figured that was the end of the story. They were wrong. Shots Part 5, The Fight to Save It. But in the 1990s, something changed. Citizens groups, environmental activists, scientists, and local residents started demanding action, and eventually, Florida listened. In 1996, the state passed the Lake Apopka Restoration Act, and what followed became one of the largest environmental restoration efforts in Florida history. The state began buying back farmland along the North Shore, thousands of acres. Then, engineers and scientists started trying to rebuild the wetlands that had originally protected the lake. Massive restoration projects removed phosphorus from the water. Native plants were reintroduced. Wetlands were rebuilt. Special marsh flowways were designed to naturally filter lake water before it returned to the ecosystem. And here's the crazy part. Even after pollution sources were reduced, the lake itself kept polluting the lake. Because decades of nutrient-rich muck had settled on the bottom. The sediment basically became a giant phosphorus time capsule, continuously leaking pollution back into the water. So recovery became painfully slow. Not years. Decades. Which honestly feels like one of the biggest lessons of this whole story. Destroying nature can happen fast. Fixing it, that takes forever. And honestly, I drove out there not expecting much. I'd heard the stories, everyone has, but when I turned onto that road, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Part 6, The Surprising Comeback. And then, something unexpected happened. The comeback didn't begin with fishing, it began with wildlife. The restored wetlands on the North Shore exploded with life. Birds returned first, and today the area has become one of the best birding locations in Florida. Hundreds of species have been recorded here. You'll find alligators, otters, bobcats, turtles, osprey, herons, egrets. Basically everything that looks like it belongs on a Florida postcard, or in a "Do Not Approach" sign. The centerpiece of this revival is the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, and honestly, it's one of the most underrated nature drives in Central Florida. Photographers love it, bird watchers love it, cyclists love it, and if you enjoy seeing dozens of alligators casually staring into your soul from 6 feet away, you'll love it too. Modern visitors now describe the area as one of Central Florida's hidden gems, which is kind of incredible considering this place was once considered environmentally doomed. Lake Apopka still isn't fully healed. Scientists are still working on cleanup and habitat restoration today, and it may never return completely to the pristine fishing paradise it once was, but compared to the disaster people remember from the 1970s and 80s, the recovery is remarkable. And maybe that's why this story matters so much, because Lake Apopka proves two things. Nature is far more fragile than people think, but also far more resilient. If humans are willing to actually help fix what we broke. And, honestly, that may be the most surprising Florida story of all. I bet you didn't know about the hidden wonders of Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive. Welcome to the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive adventure, where every turn brings a new surprise. If you made it this far, you're officially one of my people. So here's your reward. And hey, if you're enjoying this, it actually helps a ton if you hit like, maybe subscribe and share this with someone who's about to spend way too much money at Disney this week. The Orlando Drive, where the traffic jams are caused by alligators. No, seriously, not tourists, not construction, gators. So just outside Orlando, like, shockingly close, you've got this place called the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive. It's an 11-mile one-way road through what used to be one of the most polluted lakes in Florida. And now, it's basically been reclaimed by nature. And nature came back aggressively. You pull in and right away, it just feels different. No ticket booths, no crowds, no one trying to sell you a $9 bottle of water. Just a dirt road, disappearing into the wetlands. And here's the key. This is not a drive fast and get out situation. This is a roll your windows down, drive 5 miles an hour, and just see what happens kind of place. Because within minutes, you're gonna spot your first gator, and then your second, and then you realize, oh, this is their place, we're just passing through. Some of them are right up on the edge of the road, just laying there like they own it, because they do. Others are halfway in the water, just eyes and snouts sticking out like little swamp submarines. And the birds out here? This is where it gets kind of crazy. You've got herons, egrets, ospreys overhead, and then out of nowhere, entire flocks lift off at once and it looks like the sky just rearranged itself. And then, this is my favorite part, you start noticing the weird stuff. Old pump houses, random structures off in the distance, little hints that this place used to be something else entirely. And now it just feels like nature said, yeah, we'll take it back from here. It's quiet in a way that you just don't get in Orlando. No background music, no crowds, just wind, birds, and the occasional splash that makes you go, yep, something's definitely in there. Quick tips so you don't mess this up. Go early morning or late afternoon, that golden light hits different and the animals are way more active. It's completely free, which still feels illegal considering how good it is. Stay in your car, this is a drive, not a hike. The gators are not there for meet and greets, and take your time, seriously, if you rush this, you're doing it wrong. Why this is the perfect Disney break, after days of crowds, lines, noise, and spending money every 5 minutes, this is the exact opposite. No schedule, no stress, no chaos, just you, a quiet road, and Florida the way it used to be. Now, a lot of people have asked the same questions after seeing this place talked about. First, is this close to the theme parks? The Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive is just outside Orlando near Apopka, and honestly, it feels like you accidentally drove straight out of the city and into prehistoric Florida. And getting there is surprisingly easy. If you are coming from the theme parks, you can take State Road 429 and get off near Lust Road. It's about a 15 to 20 minute drive after you get out of Disney traffic in Buena Vista. The entrance is right there when you get off the highway, which somehow makes it even stranger once you are surrounded by giant alligators just 2 minutes after driving on a normal highway. Now here is the important part. This place is only open Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and some federal holidays. Quick theme park tip. These are the days that the theme parks are most crowded, so it's also the best time for a side trip. The entry gate opens at 7 in the morning and closes at 3 in the afternoon. And keep in mind, everybody has to be out by 5. And yes, it is completely free. A gift from the state of Florida and local government, which honestly feels like a thank you gift. Considering how incredible this place is, on a good day it is easily one of the best nature attractions in Florida. The drive itself is about 11 miles long, and depending on traffic, the appearance of wildlife that has decided they want to be seen, and how many times you stop to stare at something terrifying, amazing, or extremely beautiful, it will usually take between 1 and 3 hours. And trust me, you will find reasons to stop. Because every few minutes there is another giant bird, another massive gator, or some scene that looks like it belongs in a nature documentary narrated by someone with a British accent. Except here, you are in a rental car from the airport, with no guides pushing you to move along, move along. You are free to experience anything that makes you go, wow, that's crazy strange. One thing to know before you go, this is a one-way drive. Once you enter, you are committed. There are no shortcuts, no escape routes, just you, the swamp, the lake, and countless varieties of creatures and nature at its finest. And, well, whatever giant reptile is currently blocking traffic, which honestly makes this the most Florida traffic jam imaginable. And, somehow, this completely free wildlife drive ends up becoming one of the coolest things nature lovers can do in Central Florida, a memory that you and your kids will agree, that was cool. And if you thought this lake had secrets, wait until you see what's hiding at the bottom of the one I'm driving to next.